so far, really, as I was saying it, oh, that's a good one too. There's this. My goal today is really to catch what I would consider a giant bass for this fishery, which is anything over 3.5 pounds. You know, when I think about fishing in the fall, these are really the type of days that I think about a lot. It got into the upper 30s last night, and it's still only about 46, 47 degrees. And even though you may not think about it, these can be really good days to pick up a buzzbait and just kind of go. You know, it's not a technique that you may catch 100 bass on, but usually you're going to catch better than average fish for the fishery that you're fishing, which can be, you know, today a 2 to 3 pounder is a pretty big fish on this particular body of water. And I kind of came down to the dam area where a little bit deeper water is, just because there's so much of a volume of water down here that it doesn't kind of cool down as fast as some of the real shallow water. So even though I'm fishing in shallow water, I'm still fishing down here by the dam where there's more volume. And so it's not going to cool down quite as much. And hopefully we can get a couple good bites on this buzzbait. I've not been to this lake, and I don't think I came. I know I haven't been this year, and I don't think I came last year at all either. I may have come last year, but I can't really remember. If I did, it was only for a day. So I don't really know what to expect. The water is 64 degrees. I don't know what it was before our kind of cold snap. But we're just gonna go fun fishing today, and there we go, baby. Look at that. All right. Look, I know it's not big, but that is the first one. Sorry, I got a towel hanging on my, it's raining, so I got a towel on my camera here. But just a keeper right there on the buzzbait. Like I said, it's cold out right now. But man, that fish hit that, and I didn't even hear it. I felt it. But that's a great sign. I mean, we've been here for 5 minutes. You know, one thing I noticed with that fish right off the get-go is there's a lot of cover that is against the shoreline, and where that fish was sitting, there's a brush pile that sticks out a little bit deeper. I'm sitting in 8 foot of water, and so maybe that's where these fish are. They're out a little bit from the shoreline. So I don't know, I'm really just kind of thinking out loud. Oh gosh, try not to lose my face. I know for me, one of the things that I like to do when I'm fishing this buzzbait in the fall and in a little bit colder water, you do the same thing a lot in the springtime during the pre-spawn, is really just slow that bait down. Was that I may have just had another fish. If it was not big. But the key is really getting that bait to just slow creep across the top of the surface. That to me is the biggest key, and it sounds so simple, and it is, but sometimes you just don't think about it. You go out there and you kind of just fish that buzzbait faster like you might normally do, and I think speed can make a big difference. Another big difference is always popping that bait a little bit too. You see me a lot in the cast, I'm either popping the rod tip like that or I'm hitting my reel handle like that. I try to do that a couple of times a cast, because there are times where bass are gonna track this bait, and just like that stick right there, tracked right in there. There are times where they're gonna track that buzz bait, and sometimes just popping it with your rod tip, man, that can really be a triggering mechanism. That fish got that bait pretty good. You know, I always want to see how good a fish is going to get your bait that you're throwing. That's one of the biggest, simplest clues to kind of figuring out if you're throwing the right deal. And that fish was not big. I mean, he was a pound and a quarter fish, and he had that bait pretty good, pretty deep. So currently that makes me believe that if I can put it around a group of fish, if I can find a stretch here where there's a lot of fish, that they'll be getting that bait pretty good. So I just got to kind of figure out, are these fish on something specific? You know, that fish was on a little bit of an outside wood clump, you know, kind of like what I'm fishing right here, the outside, the kind of end of a laydown. Is that where these fish are sitting, or was it just a random fish? There's another one. Let's go, baby. Let's freaking go. Look at that. See, what I was just talking about is how good that last fish got it. Look at that one. He's got it deep. That's a solid fish right there. Man, this is already fun. That's a much solider fish. I mean, he's still, I know, he's a pound and a half. He's pound and 3/4. He's thick, good river fish, but man, I tell you what, it's, I haven't been here in so long, it's just fun to get some bites. Look at that beautiful fish. Gosh, got it good. Thank you, buddy. That was a really cool bite too. Kind of popped that bait, just like I was just talking about. Just kind of popped it, and he came out there and actually smoked it. That first one just kind of nipped it, brought it right below the surface, and that one actually hit the bait pretty good. So that fish was maybe similar to that first one. He kind of messed up my buzzbait here. Let's get this situated. Kind of similar to that last one. I mean, he hit right there, not directly on the bank, but I would say probably came 2-3 foot. It was sitting in probably 2 or 3 foot of water, kind of towards the end of that tree right there. This video is brought to you by my apparel company, Finn Fishing. Right now, for the month of October 2024, you can buy a USA made sun shirt and a bass hat for $67. All you have to do is add the sun shirt of your choice to cart, add the hat of your choice to cart, and you will see that automatic discount at checkout. Shopping at Finn Fishing is truly one of the best ways to help support the Bass Fishing HQ channel. I greatly appreciate all of you who have done so. Today I'm fishing, it's actually a reservoir, but it kind of sets up like a river. It's just a very skinny reservoir. There's a couple of small coves or pockets or creeks, I guess you would really call them, off of it, but for the most part, this lake is all about stretch fishing a lot of times. And what I mean by that is that you just got to get on the right stretch where there's a lot of fish. So sometimes the best lures to use when you fish lakes like this are just ones where you can cover a lot of water, which is part of the reason why I wanted to pick up this buzzbait. Also, it's just my favorite My favorite bait to use this time of the year. Just catch so many, I know those weren't giant fish, but you can catch some giants on this bait. You know, a giant on this lake is gonna be over 3.5, 4 pounds. Like that would be a giant. And you know, anything over 2 is a good one. There's a lot of tournaments won here with, you know, 8 to 10 pounds, even less than that at times, because this lake, you know, that it goes up and down a lot with rains, and so, which means it can be very muddy sometimes, very clear, up and down, it's all over the place. But we just gotta find that right stretch, that right, you know, pattern, cadence. Right now I'm feeling pretty good. Those 2 fish, they both got it really good, so I feel like I can just keep covering water. I just don't know if I'm gonna, is it something to do with the wood? Is it something to do with the rock? You know, we're fishing a little point right here. Anytime you fish, you should really just sit there and ask yourselves a ton of questions. The one thing I know is that both of those fish were close to a piece of wood, and they were probably sitting in 2 to 4 foot of water. Not right up on the bank, not super far deep. So that's everything that I know right now. Like this stretch that I'm coming up on, there's not a ton of wood cover on it. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple of logs here and there underwater I can't see, but can I still get bit on these areas that don't have any wood? You always got to keep everything honest. I mean, you always got to kind of sample everything when you start fishing. There's kind of some bigger boulders up here. Really just trying to put the pieces together. I'm very excited to get a few bites early. You'd think there'd be one sitting on this one tree. It's one of the only trees on this little stretch. I used to throw buzz baits a lot on, you know, just 20-pound fluorocarbon, kind of my spinnerbait setup. And you can get away with fluorocarbon on a buzz bait because you're constantly reeling that bait. It's not like other topwaters where you're popping slack in the line and you don't want fluorocarbon because it's going to get that bait to sink down. You know, a buzz bait, you just kind of, you keep on making it go. But I kind of switched over to using braid, straight braid, and this is 30-pound braid, and I use it on my spinnerbait rod, which this is actually a buzzbait rod. It's the Buzz Burner made by Arc. It's in the Cobb series, and it's a great spinnerbait and buzzbait rod. I also use it to flip and pitch when I'm using like a braid to fluorocarbon leader, which I love to do actually, and we might do that a little bit today, but it's a perfect buzzbait rod. It's a heavy power rod, which is nice because I can throw bigger spinner baits, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce spinner baits, and that it'll handle that size of spinner bait. But you can also throw 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce buzz bait. Today I'm using a 3/8 ounce buzz bait, and I'm trying to remember what brand this is. To me, it's got one of the best, you know, plastic keepers on it. I'll dig it up here in a minute, let you guys know what it is. But you'd kind of think with the overcast conditions that these fish may not necessarily need wood cover to kind of relate to, that they could be kind of roaming. But, you know, I have not got bit on these rock stretches or even kind of these stretches that have this river grass, willow grass really sitting on them. It's been around the woods, so. But I'm just gonna keep on moving, keep on casting. I'd really like to get a little bit more parallel with the bank, but I know that some of these fish they're not quite right on the bank right now, so I'm trying to stay off a little bit. There's a little creek. It's one of the only creeks on this lake, just right up here. So we're gonna fish that quick and then keep on moving. I'm trying to get around all these boat slips right now. I could really take my time to skip underneath the boat slips and against that rock bank, but I'm currently thinking that these fish might want a little wood. I know there's a little wood cover in this creek, so we're gonna jump up there. Well, let's just fish this point real quick. The little rock point's never a bad thing to fish. I came over here to probably the deepest stretch of bank really on one of the whole portions of this lake. The main river channel where it used to be is swings up. So I'm 5 or 6 foot off the bank right now, but I'm sitting in 14 foot of water. So I just want to fish this bank for about 15 minutes. There is some wood, like here's a piece of wood right here. But I know it's one of the deeper banks. So maybe they're just relating to it because, you know, it's an easy up and down spot for these fish. They can move upwards when they need to. When the sun pops up and the water warms up, they can also just move down a couple of feet and be in real comfortable water. So because it's so steep, I anticipate these fish being a little bit closer to the bank than those other ones were. But I'm really trying to cover water, but I'm also trying to fish that bait slow. So trying to do both at the same time. I don't want to get caught in a rut of really fishing that bait too quickly, because those bass that bit it were pretty slow. So far, really, as I was saying it, oh, that's a good one too. Oh, dude, man, they are getting it good. They are getting it good. That right there is one of those better ones I was talking about for this lake, for this pond. That is a good one. I was literally just about to say that I haven't, and that comes out. That's a good one right there, man. Gosh, I love fall fishing. I used to hate it. I used to hate it so much. And now that I just realized sometimes you gotta go and just keep going, look at that. I'm gonna weigh it actually. It's probably a little over 2. So for this lake, it's a good fish. And that's what that buzzbait's all about. You know, for the lakes that you fish, this may be a small one. You might be catching 4s and 5s, but oh yeah, 233. So that'd be almost a kicker on this particular body of water. Gosh, what a fish. So much fun. I was just about to say that maybe I really need to stick to the wood, because I'd fished down a good portion of that bank and hadn't got bit. Now, something that I do see about this particular little area is that it's this whole lake is pretty straight as far as the bank goes, but there's a little bit of an indention right here, and that's where that fish kind of was sitting. So it's just, again, I'm just trying to process, trying to figure out what these fish are doing, if I can pattern them or if I just need to cover water. Because sometimes in the fall, you just need to go. You need to not worry about where you're catching them, and you just need to kind of just keep fishing. So, but these fish, they've all got the bait really good. They've all been hooked extremely well. That's what I love seeing. I know that I have a good bait. A lot of times after you directly catch a fish, I really like to slow down and pick the little area where that fish was apart pretty good, because I was fortunate to grow up on a pond. My parents had a pond, a 1 acre pond in the backyard, and no matter what time of the year it was, if you saw one bass, you typically saw a couple of them. You know, those fish like to, even if they're just going down the bank, they like to be in little wolf packs. So whether you just run into a wolf pack and can take advantage of them, or whether you've actually found a good stretch where there's a bunch of fish, you always want to cast and slow down when you catch one. Right through here, there's another little, you got a culvert right there. Whenever it rains real hard, that water comes flowing out of that culvert, and it kind of creates a little bit of a point. Oh my gosh, and there was one right there. Dadgummit. There was one right there. But as I was saying, there's a little point created by the water runoff. When it shoots out of that drain, that culvert, it compacts a lot of sediment and makes a little tiny point. Not huge, but I'm sitting in 9 foot of water as opposed to mostly 14 and 13 and 14 foot of water, and just had one hit us right there. So I'm not sure how big that fish was. I saw a decent little part of him. He looked like a keeper, but he didn't look like a big one. I still don't think I've found any really good stretches. That first one we started on, where I caught those 2 keepers, there was definitely some fish in that general area. I bet I could probably go through there and maybe flip a jig, maybe throw a square bill, pick up a couple extra fish. But I'd kind of rather just keep covering water and try to find either a good stretch or just pick up some random fish. You know, that 233 that we caught was kind of just a random fish. And that, I cannot stress how that a lot of times is what fall fishing is about. It's just covering water, getting a bite here, getting a bite there, but being confident in a bait that you can just pick up and go with, like a buzzbait, you know, a plopper, square bill, spinner bait. Those are all baits that could possibly work today, but I feel my chances at catching a really big one are with this buzzbait. So I'm gonna stick to it for a little while. My goal today is really to catch what I would consider a giant bass for this fishery, which is anything over 3.5 pounds. We've been fishing for just about an hour now. We got 4 bites and 3 fish. So already been a successful hour. So I'm gonna keep on working up the lake, just covering a ton of water. You know, I've said this a lot on this channel, but to me, some of the best buzzbait fishing is really still yet to come. I think when that water temp a lot of times gets in the 50s, you know, mid 50s is really prime time where a lot of these fish really start feeding up, and you can just do what I'm doing right now, just take a buzzbait and go. The thing about when that water temp gets in the 50s is that I feel like fish become a little bit easier to pattern. They're gonna be in a little bit more specific areas as opposed to a little bit of everywhere like they are right now. Start kicking my speed up a little bit, the speed of my boat, not the speed of my bait. Still trying to creep this thing across the surface and pump it every now and then, but a lot of times when you fish faster like this, you stand the opportunity of fishing over a fish or two, which is fine, but typically the more water that you can see, you can really run into those groups of fish where you'll go down, you'll find a stretch and you'll catch 6 or 7 down that stretch. Or, it depends on the lake that you're fishing. You might catch 15 or 20. So a lot of times I err on the side of fishing a little too fast with my boat as opposed to too slow. Because you can just waste a lot of time fishing in unproductive water. There are some smallmouth on this lake too. I've caught a lot more of them kind of up towards the river portion of this lake, which I think later we're gonna go up that way. But we've had a few rains recently, and I don't know if it's gonna be super muddy down there or not, or up there or not. So I really wanted to fish this a little bit cleaner water with this buzzbait. Oh my gosh. I don't know how he missed that. All those first fish that we caught, I mean those first 3 had that bait really, really good. And now the last 2, I don't know how big they were. I mean, it's just hard to judge. Those both may have actually been smallmouth. But if I run into an issue where I'm gonna keep missing fish, sometimes what you can do is switch over to a bait like a plopper. And, you know, plopper obviously has treble hooks. And so you tend to hook up with those fish at times. I gotta believe if a freaking bluegill, I gotta believe if a 3-pound largemouth hits that, he's gonna, as good as those first ones got it, he's gonna get it. So we're gonna keep rolling with this. I may be close to having to put on a new frog though. But I lost one of the legs on my toad, so thought I might as well go ahead and just show you the setup really quick. This is I just looked it up, it's a Dirty Jigs buzzbait. I believe it was designed by Scott Canterbury, who, him and Gerald Swindle, I think are 2 guys that, like, when you talk about buzzbaits, I feel like those are 2 guys you can trust a lot. And so anyways, it's a very simple kind of setup, and you can see all this bait comes with is your blade and this kind of weird looking weight, which is really just a plastic keeper for a toad. So this is typical setup, just a Zoom horny toad. And I like to completely cover that lead out, which brings, usually when I'm putting this on this hook, it's about 1/8 of an inch right from the crotch of this particular toad. So I'm gonna feed it down, trying to be as straight as possible. About 1/8 inch from that crotch. And then you just push that frog up over top of your that lead. Just like that. Just like that. Got a black buzzbait, black horny toad, black. I don't think the blade matters too much. I mean, I could probably have a chartreuse blade on there and I think I still catch fish, but if you guys are still watching this, you'll have to kind of let me know what you think about this, I guess, the style of this video. It's a little bit more laid back, and I just wanted to try it out. I don't really have music, you know. When I do like a typical lake break video, I put in a lot of time editing a video, and I love doing that. I love making a really good video, but I did want to kind of have something that was just a little bit more raw, I guess you could say. And so I'm just interested, I'm always interested to hear what the audience thinks, what type of, you know, content that they like to watch. Is this something that you prefer, maybe even? So let me know down below in the comments. Do you like this kind of raw, not extreme edited, or do you like my other videos? So we're approaching a little creek right here, and I know from past experience that it's a pretty shallow little pocket. There's not much to it, but what you do have is you kind of have just a break in the monotonous of the bank here, where you kind of have two little points now on this side of the pocket, on that side of the pocket. So this can be a prime area at times to catch fish. But really haven't figured out as far as where the fish are currently, as far as, like, we've caught fish, we're confident in a bait, but I haven't found a section of the lake that I'm like, this is where they are. And I'm telling you, that is how fall can be. And I've said that a million times, so I'm not gonna say it again, but as a fisherman, you still kind of sit there and contemplate, should I be doing this, should I be doing that? When sometimes it's all about just going and fishing. Now we got some rain coming. Go. Okay. Let's make sure that that's on. Not a giant, but that's another keeper. And I was just about to leave, of course. And I decided to stay because, again, I kind of came up on a little pocket. So it's just a little bit of a depression in the bank, and got us a little keeper. He crushed it, man. I really wonder if those fish that missed it were smallies. Because, I mean, most of these fish have been just getting that bait so good. He was just on this little tiny point. I think that's number 4 though. And it's worth me fishing down this stretch just a little bit longer. Interesting thing about that fish is that, you know, the other 3 fish that I've caught, I thought were coming out of probably about 2 to 4 foot of water. And that fish, I cast it up real shallow, and he must have been sitting in the top of the water column, because I actually saw him shark the bait. So maybe they're starting to rise up. Maybe that's a one-off fish. He wasn't a big one, so I don't always put a lot of stock in the small ones, because sometimes they're just dumb and do stupid things. But he was a keeper. So I did come up the lake a little bit, and I have not been bit on these flatter banks yet, and it's still pretty cold, but this is actually a bank here that I've had a lot of success with in the past, and so I thought I'd just come through here. I feel like if there's any fish to be had on some of this flatter stuff, that I might be able to catch one here. But so far, I'm not loving what I'm seeing. The other thing that I realized is kind of coming up here to the shallow water, like I was talking about when we first got here, is that the water temp up here is 62, which it's definitely not too cold to catch a bass on a buzzbait, but it is colder water than what we've seen on the lake. And so that may not be a good thing. It may not matter at all, but I'm just gonna fish through this little section here, and then we're actually gonna run more up into the actual river of the lake and fish up in there a little bit. I'm assuming, just kind of what I'm seeing from here, that the water temp up there may be colder. Again, it's not a bad thing, it's just something to keep in mind. Most of the water temp we've seen today has been 64 degrees, and it's 61.9 where I'm sitting right here, so. Still not really, I'm confident in my bait. I'm not really confident in an area yet. I can't look at a bank and say, yeah, I'll catch them here. There's a smallmouth. Look at that. I thought we might get a smallmouth at some point today. That's a good one. Chunky fish. I'm telling you what, I've caught a lot of fish off of that dock. It's the only dock I've caught fish on this whole lake. Look at this. Holy cow. You probably, not sure if you can see that, but this fish has a giant crawl. Is that thing alive? Dude, he's got multiple crawls in his throat. Can you see that? Beautiful fish. Again, that's a better than average one right there. So that's 2 better than average ones we've caught here. It's that buzzbait, man, just going down the lake. I'm not really, that's a, yeah, it's a 220. I know they're not giants, but on this lake, that's a good one right there. Just a beautiful fish. Dude, that guy had a huge crawl in his mouth and he swallowed it while I was sitting here. Thanks, buddy. It's fish number 5 we've caught on the old buzzbait. And we actually starting to put together a little decent bag for this particular body of water. I mean, that's probably a little over 8 pounds. We got a couple of 1-pounders we can get rid of. I don't know if I'm gonna find a pattern today. I think it's just a hodgepodge day. I mean, I've got the bait that I'm confident in, but I can't really, there's not been a concrete place where these fish have been. I was just thinking that if I can catch a 4-pounder today, it'd be my second 4-pounder I've ever caught on this lake. I've caught some in the 3s, but like I said, it's just, not every lake you go to's got 6 and 7 and 8-pounders. I'm pretty positive I could take a crawdad colored crankbait through a lot of this stuff and catch fish. I mean, that smallmouth had a big old crawdad, 2 of them in his mouth. And that's what they feed on primarily on this lake, but I'm really just trying to weed through the little bit smaller ones, because you can catch a big one on a crawdad crank, no joke, but I'm trying to catch the biggest one in this lake. I think if I can get it around the biggest one in this lake, he'll bite it. It's just whether I can get him around one. Really been just casting a lot today. Fish have been a little bit everywhere. I'm still fishing in a little bit shallower water right now. Water 61.7 right here. I'm telling you, every time I think to leave, I catch one. I know it's not a giant. That would call up though. Look how fat, man. That is a river special right there. Just a fat, chunky, and I'm saying river because this is a part of the Scioto River where I am, and they just all are chunky like that, man. Fat and chunky. So that's a little better than average. I mean, he's probably a pound and a halfer. So that's fish number 6 that I've caught. I think I've had 8 bites. Yeah, he's a 154. So this fish is cold, man. I can literally feel the cold on him. But that's another fish though, I'm only sitting in 4 foot of water. Earlier I was starting to think that maybe I needed to be on those deep banks. We are towards the it's afternoon, it's 2 o'clock right now. It's still only 48 degrees, so it's chilly out today. But I'm just trying to put it together, you know. I'm just trying to piece something together. I mean, we're catching fish, but I have not figured out anything concrete. But man, I'm having an absolute blast. I'm just really hoping for a big bite. 4 pound plus, 3.5, 4 pound. You can see right up here where that river grass is, the willow grass. That's actually where a little creek comes into the lake. And so over time, as the creek brings water down, there's a bunch of sediment that basically makes this little shootout, this little kick out. And when it rains, those places will still flood, and it's like ringing the dinner bell sometimes for fish. But a lot of times these can be really good little high percentage areas to catch a fish. Earlier today, we fished one of these and got bit. It was one of the few fish that I've missed today. I know of a few more of these that are up the lake that I'm trying to get to, but I'm just kind of taking my time and fishing kind of everything that looks good to me. Well, we've made our way up here to where the lake really narrows down. And the water temp continues to drop. You know, it's actually 60.6 degrees, so it dropped about another degree. Again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You know, those couple of fish that we've caught here up the lake a little bit have been in 61, so there tends to be a lot more smallmouth up in this section. You catch a lot of largemouth too, I mean, but there's definitely a group of smallmouth that live up here year round. Oh, it's a good smallmouth. Big smallmouth. Gee, crickets. Oh my god. Let's freaking go. That's the bite I've been looking for, dude. Oh my gosh. That is the bite I've been looking for. That's probably over 3. Oh my gosh, look at that thing, dude. I had to kill the big camera because it was about dead. But look at that. That is the bite I've been looking for all day long. He's got to be close to 3. I really wanted one over 3. Oh my gosh, dude. Heck yeah, 348. 348, baby. That is a giant for this lake, dude. Look at that. Giant. That is what I'm talking about. That is buzzbait fishing, man. Smallmouth, largemouth. Gosh, what a bite too. Man, that is the freaking bite I said I wanted. I'm pumped, guys. Maybe I can get another one. We still got some time here. Look at that thing. Look at that thing. Gosh, 348. Man, I love it so much. Thank you, buddy. What a freaking bite. 348. I've been watching the water temperature and it just keeps going down and down. And I was starting to give up on the buzzbait, if I'm being honest. I just hadn't had a bite in a while. And I just kept thinking, literally to myself, how many times I've caught them in mid 50-degree water and even lower. And I'm like, the ones you get when the water temp is like this are big ones. And bam, I mean, it's a 348. I'm telling you, most tournaments on this lake, that would be in contention for the biggest bass of the tournament. That's exactly what I wanted. Man, we've been fishing for almost 4 hours today. So just putting together a good little bag. Haven't been here in a couple of years. I just love it. So, man, that was fun. Let's get another. Well, I tell you what, I absolutely love fishing a buzzbait. It is by far one of the best baits to fish in the fall, and this bite is only getting going. So one of the biggest things that, you know, I really saw today, there wasn't really a rhyme or reason to a lot of bites. It was just about covering a lot of water. We talked about it all day. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. You'll probably like this video right here that I did on spinnerbait fishing in the fall as well. I will see you guys in the next one.